it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be repotting and dividing this Oncidium orchid. It's not looking great because it's been about 3 years since I repotted it, but it bloomed, gave me beautiful double spikes, but I'm going to cut the spikes off. Here's what the flower looked like. I'll put a picture up so you guys could see it in its full glory. We're going to cut off those spikes and we're going to get started on dividing this. It's got a lot of roots in there. It's been soaking for about half an hour. So we will clean this up. Okay, so I cut the spikes off and I took it out of its pot and we just have this inner pot. It was like in a self-watering type setup, but I never really used that. It's been a while since I repotted it, so I know the root system is going to be crazy in here. We're going to divide this up. I'm going to give it away to some friends. Oh gosh. Jeez, why does this always happen to me? I guess because I wait so long to repot these orchids. So this is the root system. I never really use the self-watering part, but we're going to loosen this up. Oh my goodness, we could probably get a couple of divisions out of this. We have multiple directions of growth. So I will walk you through it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen up the root ball and try to get some of this medium out. So when did I pot this up? So I have the ID for this now. This was one of my first Oncidiums. I repotted it November 24th, 2020, so it's been a while. And this was one of my first Oncidiums. I got this and a Sherry baby. My mom gave it to me and I didn't know how to take care of them. And for the longest time, I grew them in bark and never really watered them properly. And they still somehow miraculously bloom, but they stalled after a while. And then I realized, oh, I should probably use some sphagnum moss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward here while I loosen this root ball up. I've loosened this up pretty good. I'm now starting to get the moss out. I potted this fully in moss and I topped it off with some bark. So I am going to rinse this out for a bit and get the rest of the moss out, and then we will get started on cutting roots and dividing this. So I took off as much media as I could. I'm not going to go too crazy with it, but this is a lot of bulbs here. Normally when it comes to cutting off roots on Oncidium orchids, it's hard to determine which one is dead, which one is alive, because it has so many. So you normally cut the roots on the old bulbs and then keep the ones on the newer bulbs, and that's a pretty safe bet. However, this one has multiple directions of growth. We have some growth here, we have some growth on this side. I can divide this into 2, maybe 3. Generally, when dividing, I like to look for at least 4 bulbs. Some people do 3, but I think 4 is a little better. You want to have at least a new growth that has come in with new roots. This is a new growth that came in. However, because it was at the edge of the pot, it never really grew to its full potential. But we have this new bulb here. Usually these push out new roots. This one pushes roots sometimes after it matures. So it doesn't always, just because you have a new bulb doesn't always mean that roots come out as it's growing. Sometimes it's after it matures. On this side, this is a bulb that has matured, and you can see that new roots are coming out here. They're white and with green tips, so I want to make sure these are in there. So you want to make sure you have new growths, first of all. This will push out roots after it's matured. And then you just want to find some points where it can divide. So I'm seeing that this orchid here, at this point, it'll divide here. So what I'll do is I'll tug on it right here, and it looks like there's like a natural point that it'll come out. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have as many roots, but this will push out some new growths. And then what we're gonna do is, you know, I'm not very happy with this. I pulled on it, but I think this will be okay. It's not as much as I wanted, but like I said, this will start pushing in roots as it grows, but I'm gonna need a support stake because we have a small root system for this side, but that's gonna be okay. This is pretty vigorous. Now over here, these are some old bulbs, so I think I'll just get rid of these and then just try to pot this up separately. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this out, these older growths. You could use your cutting tools for this. I'm just kind of pulling to see what direction they're gonna go. Yeah, I don't really need these old growths. They're kind of, this side has grown separately, so we're just gonna pull it out. You could even twist and turn, kind of get them out this way. You could see more new growths coming in. You see it happens after this bulb has matured. So you have to just pay attention to your Oncidium and just know, just because you have a new growth coming doesn't mean that roots are coming necessarily. Sometimes they come after. So pay attention to that. We're gonna get rid of a lot of roots right now, and that's okay. This is vigorous. So we're gonna tug away at this old bulb here. I don't think it's gonna do anything. And then we're gonna tug away at this one as well. Old bulbs, they do provide energy for the plant, but this was just getting way too big. So I think we're good here. So this is one of the divisions, and maybe this is another old one. I'm debating if I want to keep this. It's safer to keep more than get rid of more, but this is quite vigorous. I'm just gonna pull it out. Yep, and that's okay. So now we have this, and now I guess if I really wanted to, I could cut this in half, but I'm gonna leave it. So we have new growth here, we have new growth here, that's gonna be okay. This one I'm gonna need to monitor. As I said, as this matures, it's gonna push new roots. So let me take out the little bracts on the side, and it'll help the roots come in a little easier. This just prevents the roots from being blocked when they come down. It kind of helps a little bit. And this one I don't think is going to grow too much. This one was not my best division. I wish I had more roots, but I think it's going to be just fine. This is quite vigorous. I think this is going to be okay. We're going to clean this all up, and then we're going to start getting these potted up. So we're going to pot this one up. Again, this wasn't ideal. I was expecting more roots, but I think it's going to be okay, just given what I said. This one pushes out new roots as the bulb is mature. So more roots will come out on this side, and they just haven't come out yet. So we're gonna take these and we're gonna put it in this little pot. I'm gonna just throw it in a 3-inch little pot here. I have some sphagnum moss, so we're gonna put in some moss. I like sphagnum moss with my Oncidiums because they tend to be very thirsty. They don't like to be dry. They also don't like to be suffocated, so you just have to keep that in mind. I'm gonna put in a support right over here just to kind of prop it up and hold it as the new roots come in. And we're gonna surround this with more sphagnum moss. And the more extensive the root system is, the less you need a support stake like this, but it'll be okay. So we're gonna do that. We are going to keep surrounding it. I like to keep it fluffy, similar to my files. I try not to like make it too dense in there because I don't want it to get like super soggy. I just want it to be moist and get enough moisture in there, but like if it's too tight, it'll suffocate the roots a bit. Similar to when you have like a plug, but sometimes when the plug is too tight, it's hard to hydrate because kind of the moisture rolls out, so that's another factor. But regardless, I like fluffy moss, so it's not going to be quite as tight as like a plug. All right, so we have this in there. It will be wobbly, just given the lack of roots, which is why we have the stake here. But we're going to attach it. I'm going to put a little more moss. Hang on. This should be okay. Okay, this is good. Pushing this down, putting it in, and then we are going to attach it to one of the growths. So let's attach it to this. And then something that I don't always do is, you know, that sometimes the leaves get a little messed up. These are sterilized cutting scissors. I'm just going to cut off the parts that look a little bad, and this one is good to go. Again, not ideal that it had such few roots, but this will push out more roots and it'll be okay. I'm going to give this away to a friend or something, but once I know that there's good roots in there, and this is all set. Now let's get to the bigger one. So I was looking at this one and I was thinking it does have 2 directions of growth, 3 on each side. I mean, I usually like 4, but this one is quite vigorous. I actually received it as 1 bulb and it survived. But my thinking is, what if I divide this in 2? Because this has new roots coming in. This matured already and it's starting to push out new roots. And this has a new growth and it's starting to push out those new roots. It just bloomed. So these are starting to come out. So I'm just going to divide it, but instead of ripping it apart, what I'll do is I'm going to use my scissors to kind of help me here. So we're going to, well, no, it's dividing naturally. Okay. It kind of happened on its own. The rhizome kind of like fell apart here. So I'm just going to like try to free this. I hope you guys can understand. I'm doing this because I think I can make 2 plants out of this just because it's got new growths on both sides. So this is going to take off regardless. And I want to just make my plant a little bit smaller. So we're just going to do this. Untangle these roots and bring them in either side without trying to rip them. But it's really hard. Like I said, usually when you're repotting an Oncidium, you could just cut off the old bulbs roots because those are going to die. And then the new bulbs will take over. So, but I also kind of want some structure in the pot. So there we go. So now this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. The first one was not as ideal because it didn't have that many roots. This is going to be great. And like I said, all of them have a new bulb, new root, new root. This is good. We're going to do a little cleanup here. I'm going to do just what I did. This is of course optional, but I just want it to look a little better. Sometimes these leaves get all messed up. The leaves eventually fall off on these bulbs. I'm just cutting the leaves that look all messed up. You don't necessarily need to do this. This is just me trying to make it look a little better. And then I'm going to leave the top leaves there. I already know who I'm going to give this to. So this is great. This looks good. This one I'm definitely going to give away. And I'm going to keep the other one. Let me get to that other one. So we're here. This already bloomed and my cat ate that, of course. She treats my orchids as cat grass. The leaves, as I said, will fall off on old bulbs at some point. This is okay. This is okay. Again, you don't really need to do this. This is just me trying to make it look a little nice. I'm going to keep this one. And this will thrive. Like I said, I got it as like 1 bulb, I believe. So it was pretty amazing. And I've had this for about 7-8 years. It's one of my oldest Oncidiums. But I'm making a mess with this, but I will come back to pot this up with you guys. Okay, so I think this is a 3.5-inch pot. I'm gonna pot it up in sphagnum moss. I'm gonna put some moss on the bottom. And we're gonna put our orchid in here with its roots. This one I'll probably give away. Maybe I should actually go a little larger because this is gonna fill out very quickly. Hang tight. Okay, 4-inch pot it is, just slightly bigger. And I mean, I guess I could trim some of these old roots. I actually will. Look, we have those new roots coming in. So I'm gonna take the ones coming from back here. I'm just gonna take some off just to make sure that the pot isn't super full. This should be okay. Again, you wanna make sure you have these roots. These are the important ones, the ones that are coming from the newest growths. I just cut the ones from the back. I kept some, obviously. Maybe I'll take off a little tiny bit more. Here we go. I cut them from around that bulb here. It's hard to tell when they're alive and dead because there's so many, but this should be good. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna plop it in here, put it in the middle. This has a nice tight growth pattern. I didn't repot it for 3 years, but it was outgrowing the pot on all sides, but it tends to stay pretty tight. This has enough roots where we probably won't need a support stake, but we'll see when we're done. You can pot this up in bark if you want, but you have to water more often. So Oncidiums really like their moisture. So that's something you always have to keep in mind with Oncidiums. I used to pot them just in bark because I thought that I almost killed my phals by overwatering, and I thought that all orchids were the same. And then I started noticing that all of my Oncidiums, they started growing smaller and smaller bulbs. They survived, but then I learned they need more moisture. So it was a lesson for me, and one that a lot of orchid growers go through. And this should be good. This will be good for a little while. I mean, this is a smaller pot for an orchid with bigger bulbs, but I'm gonna put it in a decorative pot that is heavy so it won't tilt over. And this should be okay for a little while. I mean, at least a year, maybe 2, we'll see. I'll keep you updated. I tend to put them in smaller pots just because I wanna make sure that I save space. So that's one, we'll do the last one. We are gonna do the same exact thing. I'm making a mess all over. A little moss on the bottom. Then let me see, do I wanna take off some of these roots? Let's see, let's take out the roots that are attached to this bulb. So I'm gonna take my scissors and I'm going to trim these. And that's fine. I know it looks scary, but they do fine. Like, this is the most important thing, so don't worry too much. And I do like to keep some of these for structure so that it just doesn't fall when it's being repotted, you know? Oh, some fell in there. Almost done. All right, so we're gonna pot this up just like the other one. Just take some sphagnum moss and put it all around. So this, I ended up repotting this differently than I thought. I thought I was gonna divide it in 2. I ended up dividing it into 3 just because I saw the new growths. I hope you guys can understand what to look for when you're dividing your Oncidium orchids. And don't be so afraid about cutting the roots. They're generally fine. You just have to make sure you understand the growth pattern of your orchid. Some of them push out new roots as they're maturing or as the bulb comes in. And sometimes they push roots after the bulb is mature. So you have to just watch out for it. I had another one, my Miltonia Kismet Kind Kai did the same thing. And that's when I first noticed, like, oh, a new bulb doesn't mean that it's pushing in roots. So I would wait until the bulb was mature to repot. So this is a perfect time to actually repot this. Some Oncidiums will give you roots as the bulb comes out. So you just have to play with it and just watch and see the growth pattern of your orchid. Now I have 3 different divisions to give away. The other one, as I said, was not ideal, so few roots, but with new growths, it's gonna be just fine. I cut down the size of this, so that's great for my grow space, and I'm going to give 2 of these away. And we are all set. Let me know down below if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.